Okay, hello everyone, and welcome again back to the show. And this week, I thought I didn't really want to cover Liverpool because that would just be depressing for me. And so the next obvious team that are in crisis right now, I thought was Tottenham. So I'm just in this show. We're gonna just have a look at the reasons why Tottenham are doing so terribly, and if there's any hope for Jose in terms of keeping his job. So while there's no question that Tottenham's defeat at Brighton last Sunday was terrible, it was or last week was terrible, and it kind of has set in motion like a massive kind of decline for Tottenham in some people's eyes. It's hard to forget really that 2 months ago they were top of the league, and now they find themselves 6 points off fourth place in the Premier League. However, they're still compete for three trophies: the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, and the Europa League. Apologies, but there's certainly a lot of work a lot of problems facing Tottenham at the minute, and we're going to go through them. So the first one that we're going to go through is an over reliance on Harry Kane and Heung-min Son. So it'd be fair to say that everything good that has happened to Tottenham this year has not everything. A lot of the good things that have happened to Spurs this year are as a result of the work done by Heung-min Son and Harry Kane. They found the perfect way to combine. Son runs in behind as Kane drops deep and gets onto the ball and plays him through. Kane is now more of a number 10 than the number 9. And when Tottenham won 5-2 at Southampton, Kane set up all four of Son's goals with a range of brilliant passes every time, knowing exactly where his teammate would be, which obviously helped. And in January, the pair combined on a Premier League goal for the 13th time, which equaled the competition's record set by Alan Shearer and Chris Sutton for Blackburn in the 1994-95 season. And they were setting new standards, which obviously were setting the standard for the Premier League, essentially. But the problem for Spurs is that because Son and Kane have been so productive, they've effectively done all the team's attacking work by themselves. You might put out at Liverpool's front three, but they are backed up by the best attacking left-backs in the country. Maybe they might not be showing it this year, but certainly from last year, that is definitely the case. And Tottenham stand alone because essentially they divert all their attacking work through Son and Kane, and we can obviously see that through the goals and assists compared to everyone else. So there's Kane and Son at the very top, and then it goes right down to like the likes of Dembele, and Ndombele and others. So it's also important to note that Son and Kane have contributed to 50% of the chances created for that Spurs have created this year. And obviously it wasn't like that in the past. They had the likes of Ali, Eriksson, and obviously the likes of Lo Celso as well. Reguilon might have helped with that as well. So obviously they're really suffering at the minute. I mean, you could say that they could introduce Ali into the squad, but for some reason, Jose decided he's not for me. So it's a problem, certainly a problem there. And the problem with building a system, I guess, so narrowly on like a couple of players is that it is less sustainable, to be honest. So when Son and Kane were at the top of their game, they could beat anyone. But when Son stopped scoring from every chance, the goal has dried up. He's been outperforming this year realistically. So with his XG, in comparison to his XG, he's scored about nearly 6 goals more than he was supposed to. And this is not going to continue on forever. So it's bound to end at some stage, which is obviously a problem for Spurs. And when he did get injured last week, Spurs were like literally cut in half in terms of their creativity. And they lumbered through the second half against Liverpool when he went off. And in the game against Brighton, they literally didn't know how to score. It was ridiculous. One of the great strengths of Mourinho's Tottenham started to look like a weakness, essentially. And another statistic, I guess, that's interesting to think about with Tottenham is that they've spent the second longest amount of time in a winning position in the league, which is 47%, which is behind Man City's 57%, and the second least amount of time in the losing position, behind City's 9%, essentially. And if Tottenham had seen out every game where they had been ahead with less than 16 minutes to go, they would have turned 5 draws into wins and would have been on 43 points rather than 33, which would have been 1 point behind United with 2 games in hand. These 5 draws, the five notable draws that they've had in the season, Newcastle, West Ham, Crystal Palace, Wolves and Fulham, have been the story of Spurs' season, essentially. And essentially, it's just kind of, it raises questions about, like, you know, Mourinho's winning mentality, and if he's not willing to see off games, like, what's the point in Mourinho? And I guess this is kind of what the statistics say, is that, like, when Tottenham are ahead, they play deeper and deeper and doing more and more defending until they eventually concede, which, you know, as a Spurs, which for Spurs fans I can imagine could be quite frustrating, to be honest. And it would be definitely frustrating for them anyway, because obviously, you know, some fans, obviously we're all not tactical geniuses like Mourinho, but we'd want to think, oh, it's probably better to finish off a game by scoring 2 goals instead of just by having a 1-goal margin. But, you know, that's not how Mourinho really works now, I guess. And this is backed up by the stats again. So by dropping deep. So from when they dropped deep, they conceded about 8.6 shots per 90 minutes, which is the 3rd highest in the league behind Crystal Palace, 8.8 shots, and West Bromwich Albion, 11.5 shots. This shows that they're obviously allowing a high amount of shots. However, it is important to note that these shots aren't really that great. Essentially, the XG for them is like 0.08, which is like incredibly low. And while this is and essentially what they're doing is allowing them to sit back and allowing Spurs are sitting back and allowing, like, you know, pot shots, which will occasionally go in, but definitely but it hasn't always worked, which is important to point out. So Mourinho has been kind of blaming this on stuff like individual characteristics, and whether the defenders are good enough is a matter of personal opinion, to be honest with Spurs. It's a tricky one. I think I mean, they're okay. I mean, a couple of them are aging out a little bit, but you've got the likes of Rodon, the guy from Swansea who I just signed in the summer, who's extremely promising, and who Mourinho's praised certainly in his press conferences. But he kind of seems to be turning it on the players rather than on his system, which has gotten a lot of fans frustrated. And due to his kind of history of kind of blaming players, it's kind of a lot of Spurs fans are kind of feeling like this may be the end for him at Spurs, but who knows? And essentially, that's the crisis that Spurs find themselves in at the minute. Basically, they have a lack of creativity through the absence of Son, and which means that their attacking output has literally collapsed, and they certainly need to find a solution to that. Whether, I'm not sure if Mourinho is actually going to abandon his approach, but he's certainly going to have to try and find and figure out something to make it work. Whether that is in introducing Bale, who, in fairness to Mourinho, hasn't looked great, and or I don't know. It's a tricky one with Spurs, to be honest, but certainly I certainly wouldn't want to be involved, and it's certainly a tricky issue. Obviously, because the January transfer window's closed as well, so it's not like he can bring in any replacements. So it looks like he might have to wait for the next couple of months and then hopefully, if he's not out of a job, he might have to just fix the approach. All right, I think that's enough on Spurs, to be honest. And if anyone has any topics that they want me to talk about, please leave them in the comments of this video, and I'd be happy to look into them. But that's it for the show today. I hope you enjoyed, and have a good weekend, everyone, and I'll see you next week. Bye.